Hello and welcome to Behind the Bearcat. This is the podcast where the Northwest Missouri State University Career Services Office chats with Northwest faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends to hear about their career journeys, how they got to where they are, and how they became Bearcats. I'm Northwest Internship Coordinator Travis Klein.
And I'm Hannah Christian, the Assistant Director of Career Services here at Northwest. And today, as a guest on our podcast, we have the current president of Student Senate, hailing from Omaha, Nebraska. He's a middle school social science education student. Please welcome Kirayle Jones.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, welcome, Kirayle. It looks amazing. You're outside and the sun is shining. So,
oh yeah,
looks like you're living the dream.
It's about 50 degrees here, so it's pretty nice.
All right. So one of the ways that I like to start out our podcast is just by asking our guests what their very first job was. And I know you're a student here, so you haven't catapulted off into a career, but tell us about your first job ever.
So my first job, I actually applied when I was 15, and so I was ready to have it right when I turned 16. And so I actually got right into the workforce right away when I turned 16. But I worked at a before and after school program for Millard Public Schools in Omaha, Nebraska, where I would, show up really early in the morning and, help with breakfast and things like that. And then in the afternoon, it's kind of more like of a daycare setting where you just watch kids play, you help them out with some homework and things like that.
So see, this already leads me into your very first job was in an educational setting. Have you always wanted to teach or wanted to be a teacher?
So when I was growing up, I wanted to be like a heart surgeon. I would always tell everybody that I met, even since I was 3 or 4 years old, that I wanted to be a heart surgeon. But then that slowly morphed into being a teacher. I don't know how or why, but probably since first grade, I've always wanted to be a teacher. So yeah.
Did you have any specific teachers that influenced you along the way?
I felt like all of my teachers kind of made an impact on me in some way or another. But I guess I kind of had really strong teachers in high school where they, could help me personally and then educationally as well. So yeah, I want to say I had a couple of teachers in high school that really drove it home for me.
So how did you get to Northwest? Can you kind of tell us the story about how you found Northwest and why you wanted to come here?
Sure. So the process was, I would say, unconventional. I was looking at West Coast bigger schools. My parents and we actually went to the West Coast in a camper, and we spent an entire month just driving from Washington all the way down to California. And so we were looking at different big schools there.
That is the way to do a school
that's
visit.
An awesome plan.
That is a great plan.
Well, and it was a great vacation as well. And so, you'd have a couple schools here, and then most of the time you just chill or something in the camper. But I was looking at Fresno State in California, and I was really pretty much set on that school. But then I had a couple of friends who were like, we're going to go down and look at Northwest, for football. And they're like, you have to schedule an appointment. And so we ended up going down there. And the second I stepped on campus, it was just like, this is amazing. You see all the trees and the landscape, and we got to see Brown Hall, the education building, and they were telling us how I didn't have to wait until junior year to get into the classroom, and that they were going to start that within the first 6 weeks. So I'm like, I'm sold. And then you also check out the Bearcat Commons, and all the food down there kind of wrapped me in as well. I'm a big food guy, so.
So how did you get involved with Student Senate? Last season we had Asma Hassan, who was the former Student Senate president. So I'm curious, what your story is for how you got involved with that organization on campus.
Yeah, so I actually met some of the cabinet members my freshman year at the organizational fairs event that the university puts on. And then, they're just kind of letting me know, well, this is the voice of the students, and you get to vote and make some big decisions. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds interesting. Well, then they had some informational sessions that evening where you could sign up to run for a freshman representative position. My friend and I ended up doing it. We got elected shortly thereafter. And then after that, I was just hitting the ground running from then. As you know, I was the vice president last year and the president currently. So I've fell in love with this organization. It was pretty early.
What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned by being a part of Student Senate that maybe you could share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Being in Student Senate, you get to meet with all different types of people. You have the students, number one, and they have different backgrounds. And then you have, the faculty, and they have different backgrounds, as well as administration, community members. And so I think this organization has really helped me network and collaborate with all different types of people. So moving forward, especially as, going into education, you got to have that, because you're going to meet with parents and, again, administration and community members. And I think Student Senate has really prepared me to do that.
Are there other organizations that you're part of on campus outside of that? I know Student Senate's one that it takes a lot of time and effort, but are there other things you're involved with too?
Yeah, I am in a fraternity, Sigma Tau Gamma. I also am a part of the Trio Support Services, and then I did the History Club last year as well. So, not as much time in those organizations, but they all still make up a part of the schedule, very busy schedule that I have. So.
If I was a student, maybe a prospective student or maybe a young freshman, trying to figure out how to get plugged in, maybe not just with Student Senate, but could you give me some insight on how I could, because if I'm looking at you and I'm seeing you as president of Student Senate, I'm thinking, man, I could never do that. Like he's just got so much talent and like he's so far ahead of me. What types of advice or wisdom would you share with the younger students to help them get involved?
Well, first, I appreciate the kind words. Thanks for that. But I would say you just kind of find your niche. We have almost 200 student organizations on campus. And it's not everything from recreation. You have major specific things as well. So if you are in, a passion for your major, I would say look out into some of those clubs that, correspond with that major. You'll find many people who have the same interests as you do, but then they'll also help you find things and tap into a side of your personality that you may not have experienced. So like me, I'm kind of a nervous, shy guy when it comes to some certain things. And I think some of those organizations that I had immersed myself in, I was able to work with different people who helped me set up, talking in bigger crowds or interviews. That's probably one of my struggles, but all of those things will come when you get to associate yourselves with people sort of like you. So.
What is your favorite? So let's hop back to middle school, social science education. What's your favorite thing to talk about? So when you get to go teach, like, what are you super excited about?
I would say the civil rights era. That has set up our world pretty much to how we know it today. And without the civil rights era, and some people willing to take chances and kind of defy the rules and the laws at that time, we probably, we wouldn't see a lot of the stuff that we see today. And so, and that goes for most of history. But I think that part in particular, where we have Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks and Malcolm X and all of those big names, I think it's just the most fun to me. Yeah.
I always have respect for people that want to teach middle school. I have a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. Middle school's that rough, right middle area. So
sure, yes.
More power to you. Kudos.
Thanks.
So let's go back to thinking about working. So you were working in an educational environment. Did you do that all the way through high school, all the way up until you came here? Did you have any other jobs?
Yeah, so that only lasted for about, I want to say it was through the summer, so probably about 8 or 9 months. Then I had to start training for football. I was on the football team all 4 years, and so that practice is right in the evening with that, and so you couldn't really do the after school part. And so I ended up getting a job at the local supermarket, where I started as I bagged the groceries, and then I moved to cashier, and then I was, kind of having some of the supervisor's responsibilities without, having to do any of the training and all of that stuff. So kind of worked my way up there. And then in the summer, I worked at a grounds crew in Omaha as well, at the high school, actually. It's got Catholic, where I did a bunch of the mowing and aerating and trimming and all of that stuff of that sorts. And then when I came to Northwest, I ended up getting a job in before and after school program again, where I served as a coordinator for the last 18 months or so. So I'm doing that as well.
So what have you in that position, what have you done? So talk to me about your thought process. Like, how do you approach your work, since you're training to be an educator? So
absolutely. And I feel like this job has really helped me out with that as well. I don't manage that big of a staff. I think there's about 8 or 9 of us that we do the before and after school at St. Gregory's in Maryville. And then I make the schedule. I have to prepare, a list for a snack. We have to serve snack every day. And then most of it, a good time of it is just hanging out with the students, and then helping with some homework. And so you got to, refresh your memory sometimes in certain subjects, but for the most part, it's actually pretty fun. We play kickball, basketball, all of that good stuff. We also watch movies. The kids like to watch a lot of movies, so we do that occasionally.
All age groups in that? Is that a wider age group, or is that just a?
So we actually have 2 separate age groups, pretty much. So there's going to be the preschool, where we have preschool SAC teachers who work with the 4 and 5 year olds, 3, 4, and 5 year olds, and then we also have the big kids, is what we call them. So that's going to be everybody from kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade. Generally speaking, though, we'll have, probably a handful of 8th grade, 7th graders. So the bulk of it, I would say, probably comes in around 2nd or 3rd grade. Like I mentioned, though, I'm not that big of a elementary guy. I'm more of a middle school and high school person. And so that gives me, it refreshes my true love for education sometimes. And so just working with those students, they also have to learn as well. But I know that's not my niche, but I still, I love to do it as well.
Yeah.
What's the career goal afterwards? So, middle school education, history, or social science. So is there do you want to go back to Omaha? Is there a certain goal for where you want to be, or?
So right now I'm actually applying to grad schools. I'm looking at, a handful of them right now and doing some research there. But my ultimate goal is to get a doctorate in educational administration or something along that line. And then my master's will actually be in higher education leadership. So student affairs, working with student organizations and things like that.
So I'm assuming Student Senate has kind of led you along that path.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really didn't know how much goes into managing student organizations per se. I just thought on a college campus, everybody just manages themselves, but there has to be an overarching, leadership. And so Student Senate is kind of that, but then you also have our advisors, the Student Senate advisors, who help us. And then there's, the vice president of student affairs and assistant vice president. And so that's the position that I really want to do, just because, like I said, just managing and working with the different organizations is a total different process than, kind of like the student side of managing.
So I always like to think a little bit through the lens of, if you are going to be in a leadership position and you're going to be overseeing, whether it is a group of students or it's a group of leaders, what types of qualities do you think are important to have for you as a leader when you're looking to hire somebody, or you want somebody to come work for you, looking ahead as a leader in that? What types of qualities do you pick out as, hey, I want to see that person, I want that person to work for me?
So my first one will probably, just be able to have, leadership, be a leader, kind of command the room. But then what comes with being a leader is being able to receive information well as well. So Student Senate, going back to that, we're the voice of the student. And so sometimes you can hear things that are concerning, that are not, the best. And what you do with that information is going to determine how great of a leader I think you can be or you are. You got to be able to, listen, dissect the information, and then come up with plans and problem solving to fix those situations as well. And so I think being able to take critical information and bring out positive outcomes with it.
What are some of the outcomes Student Senate's working on right now?
So right now, Student Senate's, our daily duties are kind of on halt because of COVID-19. We don't have any students traveling, any student organizations traveling. And so the bulk of our money that we appropriate to those student organizations are just kind of frozen right now. And so that's one of the problems. We're trying to figure out how to still get students funding if it's outside of traveling. So how can we still let the students know that we're here for them? Some of the bigger projects that we're working on right now, we do have a rollover budget where we have money from the previous fiscal year, that is still in our account and we want to use for university improvement. And so right now, there's a couple big projects that we're going to have out there coming out soon to the public. We can kind of see, I'll say a few of them, but it's exciting for me. So we're looking at putting a net on the north side of the baseball field, because I know there's a lot of fly balls and foul balls that, break some windshields over there. And so that's one of the many projects that we're looking at sponsoring. And, any small step that we can do to improve our campus and the student life, we're going to do it. And so, yeah.
Travis, I know you didn't take a breath, but I was looking at you. I just felt like you had a question, but maybe you didn't.
Yeah, no, I think, the Student Senate is fantastic. And I think that's one of those organizations, folks that aren't involved with it don't realize all that goes into it. So, I mean, you've been a representative on Student Senate since your freshman year. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
So for folks who have no idea what Student Senate is or does, can you kind of like give it a back cover of the book, kind of quick synopsis of what it is?
Sure.
And what you all do?
I always like to make a little joke. I feel like Student Senate is like the mommy and the daddies of the student organizations per se. So basically, we are there to manage and make sure everything is going to flow. We want all of the student organizations to have a great life on campus, and so we're gonna do everything in our power to ensure that happens. There's a few things that we do specifically for students. Like I mentioned earlier, we have appropriations where student organizations can come in and appeal to the Senate and ask for allocations to do traveling, host events, bring speakers, all of these good stuff to the campus. And so that's going to really enrich campus life. And that's what we really look for. We want to say, how can we help other students, have that enriched campus life? And so allocations is one of them. We also recognize student organizations. And so those student organizations who may not have started yet, but want to get started, they'll bring in representatives to us, tell us about what the organization would do, how would it also, again, enrich campus life. And then, students or the senators will then vote on that, and they'll be recognized as that as well. And then again, the last thing, we have a charitable donation, where is also money that we give to help student organizations run events with charities. And so it's basically our community side of things as well. We do have 7 committees where they all specialize in something different, but they're all in touch with the students in some way or another. Right now, with voting coming up, I always push governmental affairs. They work with the community, in particular, the laws and the government. And so they've held a couple of events with us this past week or so. We did an election presentation where we were telling students, these are the candidates that are running in the 4-state region. And then, maybe these are not really that broadcast of races, but they're still happening. And so, yeah, that's a couple of things that happen.
That's an interesting tie-in, because I think you're right. I used to work in local government, and local government elections are important, although they're not necessarily well known if you're, especially if you're a student or you're not you're not plugged into the local affairs or even the
Right.
regional, Northwest regional
Yep.
types of affairs.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting avenue to be learning about that as a college student. It's kind of outside your domain of classwork. You learn about it in theory, but this is definitely another practical hands-on way that you can get that experience.
Absolutely. Yep.
So Kirayle, I have been asking everyone, what does it mean to you to be a Bearcat?
Oh, okay. I get really excited when I get this question because a lot of people say that being a Bearcat is family, which is 100% true, but I think it goes deeper than that. I think sorry, there's a train. Can you hear it?
A little bit.
Okay. I was saying, being a Bearcat goes deeper than, your family. It goes more into your personal, yourself personally. And so you learn, like I said, how to work with different types of people. You learn what majors and minors are really tailored to you. You learn, athletics, learn about athletics. And so basically being a Bearcat just encompasses everything in our world to make you a better you. And so I think I've definitely learned that over my 4 years as a Bearcat. And I just hope that every student can also, see that as well.
Travis, I felt like I interrupted you with my Bearcat question.
No, that was perfect.
You're good to go?
Yep.
All right. Well, Kirayle, another thing that I would like to do is kind of just open up the platform to let you share what you've been thinking about, how this semester maybe has progressed for you, thoughts on being, where you're at Northwest, kind of in this time frame. I mean, we have COVID going on. Tomorrow is the election. Like, you're getting interviewed at like this pivotal point in history. Like, talk to me about what you're thinking about or what you're feeling.
Absolutely. So first things first, COVID is a beast, it has jumped into our daily lives and kind of uprooted a lot of things. So I would just say to anybody who's listening, it will get better very soon. And so, maybe things just don't look right, or maybe not fitting the puzzle piece, in the big picture, but it'll get better. Second thing, especially with today's climate, with the politics and social justice movements, we all have a duty to hold each other accountable. And so whether you're just going to school to go to school, or whether you're looking to change the world, we still have to hold each other accountable. And I think being voting in the election and then making sure that everybody's, in tune to our government, that's going to be one of the steps that we can take to make sure that, we're all doing what we need to do. So those are just a couple of big things. Yeah.
Do you have any interest in going into governmental affairs? You seem so passionate about government.
So I always told myself that I wouldn't, but everybody I know wants me to like run for president or something like that. And I think the most, governmental affairs thing that I would do
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed that episode. Don't forget to follow on your podcast platform of choice and on YouTube. Also, click the little notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an upload. And you can follow us on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and we have a LinkedIn page.